Welcome to Bringing Hope Home. We're Bryce and Colette Schaffer, and we're on a mission to bring God's hope, healing, and practical strategies right into your living room. Whether you're navigating marriage challenges, parenting struggles, or just looking to build a stronger family foundation, we've got your back. Real conversations, biblical wisdom, and hope-filled solutions. That's what we're all about. So let's dive in and discover how God can breathe new life into your home and relationships. All right, welcome to Bringing Hope Home. We are Bryce and Colette Schaffer. And
We're glad that you're with us once again in this podcast in the last week of April. It's going to fly by, and we're glad you're with us. And this month we've been talking about the fruit of the Spirit of peace.
Yeah, they've been really good. So if you haven't listened to any of the other ones, go back.
There has a lot in it. Be ready to take some notes.
Yep.
And we're on this journey of the fruit of the Spirit to really apply these fruit and take a bite of that into our lives and digest it and let it produce in those seeds in your life.
That's what this podcast is all about. Bringing hope home means bringing what the gospel has and live it out in your marriage, in your kids, in your parenting, in your home life.
Yeah.
Like, how do you apply these things in a practical way where you are, day in, day out, busy schedules?
Yeah, sometimes we listen to sermons and it's just blah, 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 and it's a nice story, it's a good analogy, and then I leave it when I leave church. And let's not do that. That's not what the Bible's for. It's to be applied. And,
right. So today we're going to go in there even further. Last week we were talking about conflict, and this week, we're talking about peace in finances.
Because that's a big one. You know, in a marriage, it's one of the top 3-4 things in a marriage that if you're lacking peace, a lot of it has to do with the stress of finances.
Mm-hmm. And that's a real thing. I mean, the finances.
It's rubber meets the road.
Right. And so that's where a lot of stress comes from. When you have stress, you don't have peace.
Mm-hmm.
We're going to get into this.
We're going to talk about that. The Bible says in 2 Corinthians 9, be a cheerful giver. And we want to give God place in our life. So the first thing, if you're not a tither, and that's, the Bible specifically says 10% give unto Him.
And this isn't because the church needs it.
Right.
It's not because it's a bill. It's because God set this up so He could have access into your finances. I want to give Him access.
I do, because He's a multiplier.
Yeah.
And I need Him to multiply my 90% when I give Him my 10%. And if you really look at it, what happened, this is really quick, but Adam and Eve sinned in chapter what?
1.
In 3. Okay, chapter 3 of Genesis, pop quiz. And so, but when you get to chapter 4, 3 was dealing with the sin. 4, you come in with Cain and Abel and offerings to get access to God. To get access not only to God, but to the blessing, because God is the blessing. And so you really see from minute 1, before the law, before the church, before everything, accessing through a gift offering back unto the Lord is important. Because He wants access, because He wants to bless you.
Go look at Malachi 3:10.
Yeah.
God says, they've robbed me. He said, well, how have we robbed you? He said, well, you've robbed me from being able to bless you, is really what it's talking about. When we don't give our tithes and our offerings, we rob Him from being able to bless us, pour out the blessing. He says, test me on this.
The only place.
He goes, try me, test me. If I will not pour out, all this blessing on you. So, we could preach a lot on tithing. We're not going to go there. Don't turn us off.
Yeah.
That's one thing, though, if you can get in your thinking and in your heart the correct way, that it is for a blessing, it's not a bill. So we got to change our thinking.
So that's the first thing. We have to start there.
Give God access.
Because you want God to have access. And so that's good. The big thing with financial, and we went through Dave Ramsey's, and I'm not going to promote Dave Ramsey except for to say that's where we started. And Financial Peace is his book.
Mhm.
And it's a great start. It's a good place to start. And, his first place was get yourself $100 in savings. That's where you start. 1,000. Did I say 100?
Yeah.
I meant 1,000. So get 1,000 in savings. And you were determined to do that. And so we scrimped, we saved. You did a garage sale to help us get over the top. We went to that. And I'll tell you what, the minute we got to that 1,000, it did. There was a little bit of a wait because we had been living paycheck to paycheck, and if something, no savings, and if something little even happened, we weren't going to be able to take care of it.
Mm-hmm.
And then the stress of that, so you got to start right where you're at. And that's where I'm saying that's where we were at. And, debt sometimes is not a bad thing. If you're taking a debt to build wealth, that's a whole different concept. And we know farmers and ranchers out here that you need that to help build your wealth. So there's, different scenarios and situations, but just know, start where you're at. And the best way is to get on a plan and get on it. Because again, when we got that $1,000, there was, at least in my life, I felt so much better that, I could take on a flat tire. I mean, we couldn't even take on a flat tire.
Mm-hmm.
I couldn't, and I wasn't able to really do it myself. So, a $200 bill of anything would have stressed me out.
I mean, we're talking, we didn't have money. We were having cream peas over toast for dinner. I mean, that's no money.
And that's a family.
That's a family, yeah.
So, we've been there. So, how do you do this in this financial piece? You and your spouse are a team with God. Again, put God in the middle of it, and then start communicating. Start not only dreaming of where you want to be, but how you can get to that spot. And we started, and we didn't know where to start, so we started with that book. Mm-hmm. And it was so good. And then we started involving the kids. Again, when we got to the point of we're going to do a garage sale, kids, this is a family thing. Where can you help out? What can we give away? What are the toys that you maybe are too old now to use, or whatever the case may be? And so get everybody, sit down, start making some decisions, write them down.
I think the main thing, and a lot of financial advisors will say this, money is the same thing with your time. You have to budget it. You have to plan.
It's a tool.
And I think that's the thing that brought us peace when we finally had a plan that, okay, if this happens, if this emergency happens, we have a plan. This is what we're doing. This is our plan to have that available. And thank the Lord that we followed that plan, because we
ended up needing it from time to time.
That emergency. And so, that peace comes from following that plan, have a budget or a plan to get out of debt that you follow. And that right there will give you peace. Mm-hmm. When you have that plan, you stick to it, you're all on the same page.
Yep. And when you start this budget, you're going to have to learn to say no to yourself and be okay with no. That's really hard in our society when we're trying to keep up with the Joneses and other things that happen in our lives. And so be okay with that.
For years, we did not go out to eat.
Right.
And they would say, go out for a date or whatever.
Yeah, every 2 weeks.
When we had small kids, we couldn't afford a babysitter. We didn't live next to grandparents or whatever. So, I mean, what do you do?
Yeah, right? You can't afford the dinner and the babysitter. So, So
I'm saying we've been there.
Yeah, we've been there. So, so that leads me to the next part is set realistic goals.
Yeah.
I mean, yes, we want you to dream and dream big, because God's a big God, and the bigger you can dream, the bigger He can grab a hold of that for you and work with you. But at the same time, if you set it too big and you don't set little realistic goals, you're going to get very upset and downtrodden, and you're going to just say, it doesn't work or it doesn't matter. So set some realistic goals. And that's, again, that Financial Peace book said, you know, with all the debt, pick off the little one or the least expensive one, you know, the lowest amount first. That's a realistic goal. It's not start the snowball effect. But pick that one off first, and you get excited, and then you celebrate those things. But set those goals, you know, and what's important to you as a family, you know, is really important. What's important is getting a boat and being on the river to spend your weekends with the family. Is that, you know, that your goal? That's great. Make that your goal. Figure out how you're going to achieve it, you know. So there can be fun goals in there too. This isn't all about doom and gloom. This is about fun. You know, if you want to go on a vacation, okay, kids, that means we're going to have to do X, Y, and Z if we want to do this. Again, include everybody. Set goals. Communicate openly. Why? I remember doing that with my folks. We were going to do this fun trip, but Christmas was in the middle of all this, and my parents sat us down and said, we're going to not do as much on Christmas because of this other thing. And because they told us, it wasn't a secret. And a lot of times parents try to keep these secret things from the kids, put it at their level. They don't have to know all about your finances and all this stuff, but they do. They know, and they can see, and when it involves them, they need to be involved or know. And so when we got to know those things, so I got a pair of socks. That's about all I got that Christmas. I remember that Christmas, but it was one of the greatest Christmases because we knew what was coming. I was willing to give that up of these things. So that's good, you know. A big thing on this too, start tracking. Track for just a couple months, at least for 1 month. Track your spending. And sometimes it's hard with the debit cards, you know, or go to just cash money all month or something, you know, but start tracking those things. So then you can look back with you and your spouse and God and start aligning your values and where you want to go with where you're at. And again, that's going to give you peace when you start aligning your values and your goals with where you're at. And again, even if it's small, it's going to be great. You know, make sure you prioritize needs, your housing, your food, your utilities, and don't forget transportation. We all need gas for our vehicles to go even pick up the kids. So those things have to be covered first before we look at anything else in your budget. But a lot of people put other things first. And I see that a lot as a pastor. A lot of people come to me and ask for help, but I know their situation, and yes, we help. But if we help more than once or twice, it's like, okay, can we sit down and look at your budget? Because something's out of whack. You know, because we know X, Y, or Z or something. And so it's not that we're trying to pry, it's trying to help you find that peace in your budget so you can pay your utility bill. It's so big, and people are, oh, they're so offended. No, don't get offended. Say, okay, someone's going to help me because I obviously need help. Be okay with that help. That's peaceful as well. You know, don't be so prideful on that. You know, and these are all just little things, of course, but don't be afraid to adjust. You know, something comes up, now I have to adjust. Life is about,
I was going to say, life is about adjustment.
Life is about, you know, adjustments, being prepared to adjust. And for me, I have to prepare to adjust. That's me. I really do need that. And so be there that way. Also celebrate your successes. Be excited. When you pay off that first credit card or that first debt, whatever it may be, celebrate it. And if it's just a high five, because that's inexpensive with your spouse, you know, a fist pump, like, yeah, we just, you know, we licked that stamp and put it in the mail, you know, that's exciting. And that, celebrate those things because they don't come along every day. And I think God likes to celebrate too. So, you know, that's good. Also, if you do have kids, equip your kids to handle money. You know, my parents started out with, you know, giving, you know, allowances, not allowances. I had an allowance. I see pros and cons to both of those. Well, they should just, you know, be in part of the family and they get, you know, you can get dogmatic either way in either ditch. But the main thing is make sure they know how to handle money. So they're going to have to
talk about finances, talk about spending,
Yep.
And those habits, and teach them early to honor God with their finances. You know, again, if you want the best success, is to honor God, and how to tithe. And so give them, money to put into the to the offering.
And something that they have to sacrifice, because they need to learn to sacrifice, whatever it may be. So, and that's not just finances, but that's just life. And so it's all about those things that, involve everybody, communicate openly, set realistic goals. That's key. And once you do that and put God in the middle of that, pray about where we should go with our money and what we should do with it. And boy, that financial peace does come. And you'll start to see success in that, and that alleviate that pressure that is one of the top 3 or 4 things in a marriage that causes the stress. And in this month of peace, if we can help ourselves help eliminate stress and get to the peace, naturally that's good, because I think too many times we just want God to just snap his fingers and we snap our fingers and everything's okay. But we have a part to play in how we things progress from wherever we're at. God's not just controlling us as a robot. So just know you're part of the problem and then part of the solution.
And we saw so many miracles that God did in our lives. Those years that we didn't have much, we were always faithful to give our tithe.
Yeah, we had more month than money.
Yeah.
That's what we would say.
We were always faithful, and I still don't know how we had money in our account. Like we had more bills, like you said, more bills than whatever. And
month than money.
Yeah, more month than money. But time, we never did not pay our bills.
Yeah, never once was
God
delinquent.
was faithful. And I think that's what you have to come down to. If you are putting your trust in God, God is faithful. And he is going to see you through everything. And when you put your trust in him, you can have peace that, you know what, God's going to take care of me. And that's where we want you to really experience and to put that into practice, where you are honoring God with your tithe, honoring him with your livelihood, and see him work in your life.
Amen.
Putting these practical things, the spiritual and the natural, together.
That's right.
And it's a dynamic force for him. So,
and for you.
Yeah. Good stuff. All right. Well, we will be back next week with a whole nother month.
New topic
as we start May.
So patience.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's a good one. We all need patience.
So be back next week.
Can't wait.
That's right. Ooh, I guess I can.
I guess I can. All right. Well, till next time, bring hope home to your life today.
If you're listening on the Apple Podcast app, give us a 5-star rating and drop a review. If you're listening on Spotify, give us a follow. And if you're watching on YouTube, hit the subscribe button. See you next week.